following video is part of our Echoes of Experience series and features Datti Kaur, an up-and-coming Sikh artist from Singapore. Through her relationships with art, music, and Sikhi, Kaur reflects on how empathy and patience have guided her. All right, so we wanted to talk a little bit about your upbringing in a diasporic Indian Sikh community in Singapore and how that kind of influenced your artistic journey.
There's a huge Indian population in the Singaporean community, and that too, as well, a very large population of Sikhs as well. However, because I was in international school, I had no access to that. So my Indian community was relatively smaller, and all of them were all international kids. And I was the only Sikh person that I knew from like 5 grades above me, where my sister was the other Sikh girl. And then a few grades below me, I knew no one else that was Sikh. Now, having said that, my parents had found it really integral to teach us music from a very young age. So I was put into tabla when I was 6 years old, and we did all 8 years, my sister and I, like exams and everything. It was quite annoying, to be honest. And did tabla for 8 years, and I wasn't vibing with the instrument, to be honest. And then we put us into kirtan classes in the Gurdwara itself. So that was when I started to have my exposure to more Sikh people, our community, and actually music of its own, right? And that's when I picked up the esraj, and I really enjoyed that. That was like the instrument that I was like, oh, my soul is so happy right now. So I did that for about 12 years roughly, and I absolutely enjoyed it. And I think that now when I look back in hindsight, if it wasn't for my music and my integration of that into my life, I don't think my art would be where it is right now, because so much of my art revolves around also the upbringing my parents gave me. And there's a docu-series called Allegory, A Tapestry of Guru Nanak's Travels. And in that, like, dad had started preparing it for years in advance. And they were like literally following the Janam Sakhi tradition around all the 9 countries that exist now. And when I look back at my like own artworks, if it wasn't for that docu-series, I wouldn't have had access to understanding more about the scriptures. I wouldn't have had access more towards learning about the 14th and 17th century arts and the traditions of that. So I have to owe a lot of my artistic tradition, like where I'm going right now, to my parents' own journey.
How did understanding of Sikhi influence your life and your art?
So to me, honestly, when I reduce Sikhi down, it just is as simple as, because I don't want to complicate it, it's as simple as everyone has the divine energy in them. Everything has divine energy in them. Every animal, every plant, every person, you are God, I am God. And if we go with that mindset, then we will approach situations with a lot more compassion and understanding that we're all here, versions of each other. And God is not someone who's like sitting above me and like judging me for every single action. Like that is coming from my moral understanding, right? Which is a God itself, because like sometimes it's important to like be angry in a moment. Sometimes it's important to also just step away, right? And like that is a version of God telling you how to navigate your life. But like being able to reflect back on that as well is also Sikhi to me, which is like to be a learner. So to constantly also reflect on yourself, to constantly learn from other people and their perspectives. So to never like reduce yourself down to say, I know what's best. I think I know everything.
Have you had any circumstances where people have kind of like not reacted to your art or your depictions, and how do you kind of deal with that?
So like this the back that I'm sitting behind, it was done for the Allegory docu-series. So in it, we specifically, so the docu-series about Guru Nanak, and my parents were like, we are not depicting Guru Nanak, and we're not depicting Bhai Mardana. We're just going to try to stay as neutral as possible, because we don't know how he looked, and we don't want to make any controversial opinions about how he looked as well. So this entire painting, as you can see, have like so many different characters in it, right? And so I'm trying to show like different varieties of people that he was like conversing with instead. And then this character over here, this one who's like got the rabab playing, I tried to make him like as neutral as possible. We're trying to show that music is a really important way in which we can bring communities and as well as like spirituality through us and like flow through us. So he has like a Bengali style beard. He has, so like Bengali style beard looks a little bit more Muslim in that way. But then I've also given him like a shawl that has like a Hindu symbol on it. And I've also given him ghungroos. And I've also given him a rabab with some like garas and stuff. So I'm trying to keep it as neutral. Like you're like someone who could be anything, right? And this person ended up getting so much like controversy when every time like someone would like text us about like they like the artwork, but they were like, why would you depict by Mardana like that? And it was like, firstly, like just because someone's holding a rabab doesn't mean it's by Mardana. Number two, it was like, oh, but he's like both Hindu and Muslim looking. What is that? And I was like, okay, like why are you like irritated about that? I'm not able to understand. If someone is looking a certain way but then also wearing something that's like of another faith, doesn't that show a lot more openness in their mind? Doesn't it speak a lot about the character of that person versus like the rigid, like the thought process that we're coming from, which is something that I feel like is happening also in our faith, which is like the outside appearance is mattering a lot more than what you feel in the inside.
You know, when you say you want to go down a path that isn't the traditional, like doctor, engineer, lawyer, it's like you get a lot of judgment from the community or even, from your family.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that that didn't really happen with you, but I know, I guess, have you seen that happen to, other Indian artists that you know, and kind of like what advice would you give to them?
I haven't really seen that with people who've pursued art now. I think that there's a core like idea that goes around, which what I've noticed at least is that like you've gotten a lot of good support from your family and your friends, which has allowed you to feel like you can access this world and be able to do this tradition. But I have spoken to a few of my friends who were really good artists when they were younger and like they really wanted to pursue that, but their parents themselves, as you said, were like, no, gotta go into the sciences, cannot do that. And I think that when I look back at that, um, and I look back at my whole like stint of teaching and like the love that I have for that, the one advice that I would say is that like don't, if you're not going to pursue it as a career, understandable. Sometimes you don't need to pursue things as a career because it takes away the fun of it in a way. Like as much as I love painting, I look at it as like a means to my ends, right? Like I have to make money from it. Um, pursue it on the side. Like you don't have to like be doing, your career doesn't have to be the same thing as what you do for your passion on the side. And like don't let your teacher telling you in class like be like just because they made a comment saying that another kid's artwork was better than yours, that is a reflection of the teacher. It has nothing to do with you as an artist because people are out here are like doing amazing in the art world for doing doodles, and their doodles are creative and their abstract art is creative, and your version of what you put into the world is beautiful, and that is it. You're creating your own world when you're painting something or drawing something out. So never limit yourself to believe that you have to like reach a standard. I get really like hurt when people say that, I'm not good enough at art, but it's like no, you are. You just haven't been told enough times that your work is good enough.
Oh, I guess I was wondering maybe like, is there any kind of time that you've had like something go wrong or like me? I'm sure there is, but like any sort of story and like how do you deal with like not failure per se, but I guess like setbacks?
I wanted to be a teacher my entire life. I was like really excited for that stage of my career. I did my 4 years bachelor's in like hopes to become a teacher, did my internships in my bachelor's and everything. And I really wanted to focus in like IB art, which is like grade 9 to grade 12 specifically. And then I got put in my practicum and I absolutely loved the act of like teaching, but I hated everything else. And that's when like I felt like life really crumbled on me. And I was like, wow, the dream job that I was like working my entire life towards now is something that I cannot see myself like even do. And then like the few reasons that I felt like that was I don't agree with the education system that we're still being raised in, especially now when we have access to knowledge at such like our little fingertips. Um, I also don't agree that art should be graded and compared to other people with a curriculum. I think it's where you shun people away from actually being able to feel like they have a creative bone in their body from a very young age. And I do not want to be part of that. But yeah, that was a really difficult time because I was like, what am I doing with my life now? Job prospects done. So like not an option. Um, but then it was quick, like in those moments, it was like the one thing I really like to tell myself when I wake up and I realize when you look in hindsight towards anyone's life is that like everything does work out for your best. Like I think it may seem like a very easy answer to say, and like it's not like me going into too much depth about it, but like I do sometimes think that when our elders tell us like just let it be like everything works out, like we don't really recognize it when we're younger, and then when you have like experiences in your own life as well that happens, you realize that these really simple sayings are actually what is the truth about life itself. Something that you feel like is the worst thing that has happened to you is not always the worst thing that is happening for you. Like there is some sort of divine intervention that is working to say that, hey, you had dreams and you have goals and keep having that. But what may be best for you is not necessarily the goals that you have set for yourself.
And then, I guess, are there any lessons you've learned throughout your journey as an artist that you maybe want to pass on?
Patience is the biggest lesson I've learned. Like it's easy said than done, but like doing work where you're having like to be really intricate and like it's not necessarily the fastest to implement what you have in your head onto paper, and it takes a lot of time to do that. And things where you feel like you're being ambitious, where like one of the paintings I did with the monsoon season, like I did the entire massive painting with just a backdrop of like tiny little like rain droplets, and those like rain droplets took me about 8 days to work on it. And like 8 days is like 8 days of just the exact same movement again and again and again, and like to find not only patience but to also find motivation in moments where you don't feel like it's there. I think that's the biggest thing that art has really taught me, is like, and then I can apply that into like the larger scale of life as well, as like even when you're like really irritated or when you're like bored or when you're down, it's like how you can find some sort of moments of peace or happiness in that as well. I learned that through my art practice, and I'm really grateful that my art has taught me so much. And I'm also grateful that I've been able to be exposed to so many art, like different varieties of art forms from a variety of absolutely amazing teachers. Like if it wasn't for them and them teaching me their techniques and their versions of how much they love their work and their patience as well, I don't think I could be anywhere that I am right now or moving forward to where I could be in the future. So I really owe a lot of that to them. But yeah, the main things I think I've really learned is truly patience.
Kaur's story and evolution as an artist teaches us the importance of embracing change and the guru's path in your life. Her remarkable commitment towards showcasing diverse and inclusive perspectives embodies empathy and love, key teachings in Sikhi.